Leading the show today, United States men's national team won, Ecuador won. Not often do you come away from a 1-1 draw saying that was fun, but I kind of came away from Friday night's game thinking that was actually an entertaining game, a pleasurable experience when it isn't always the case with watching the national team.
Well, it's not always the case with the friendly that you have that
That
you
too.
feel encouraged, or even if you win the game, sometimes friendlies have this kind of vibe about them. And then look, I think in a normal situation, a friendly, even that 1-1 against Ecuador would feel maybe a letdown. I mean, it would feel like they should have played better, they should have done better, they should have found a winner, they shouldn't have given up the goal to Ener Valencia the way that they did, all of those things. But I think if you take the overall performance, and that's what this sport is built on, Rob. It's subjective opinions about overall performance is kind of how you have to view this sport. Look, if they played that way in a World Cup match against a team like Ecuador, who qualified for the World Cup, second in CONMEBOL, like this is no pushover team. I know, no Moises Caicedo, no Piero Hincapié. They're missing names, sure. But if they play like that against a team in the World Cup, I think we would be disappointed with the result, but we couldn't really be angry about the way that they played. Right? The United States outshot Ecuador. They had way more of the ball, and that doesn't always mean something, but they were dangerous with it at times. I'm glad they got the goal, because if they had managed to lose the game despite being better across 90 minutes, that's what we would be talking about. The lack of killer instinct, the lack of ability to finish a chance, that kind of stuff. I will say, and this is an important factor, Ecuador just doesn't give up goals, right? Regardless of Hincapié's absence or Caicedo's absence, those are important players for their defense. Ecuador doesn't give up goals. That's a system thing. That's just the way that they are. You go look at their CONMEBOL record in qualifying; it's very good. They don't give up goals. So for the United States to even find one is somewhat notable.
Yeah, that's a good point there. And in the chat, Bernardo saying it felt like the England game from the World Cup, and that's a pretty good shout. But you were saying the caveats for Ecuador players missing, and we talked about it in the men's national team. We can't expect all the good players to be there all at the same time. So equal footing there for
Yeah,
both sides. And
exactly.
I gotta say, it was great to see Flo Balogun looking healthy and fit and active. This is the player that got everyone so excited a year or two ago, whenever it was that he declared himself a United States men's national team player. And this is what fans were hoping for, and he delivered that. It was great to see him moving freely, clearly not inhibited by any sort of injuries, and he did the job that was needed. He was that outlet, and he was always a threat. The Ecuadorian defense had to respect his threat,
Yeah.
and he drew people out of the way. And when he was on the ball, he, got some shots off and obviously ended up getting the goal too.
Yeah, we didn't come into this feeling great about what it was going to say about the national team, because we knew that Alex Zendejas had to pull out of the team or pull out of that game. We wondered about Jedi Robinson. He wasn't available. And then Christian Pulisic, obviously. And of course, Pulisic gets on the field, is a part of it. We saw faces like Freeman, like Luna, a little bit off. Actually, Tim Weah as a wing back, that's a thing people talked about. He has played it at the club level, but not really for the national team. So that's maybe something you take out of this. I mean, again, friendlies like this are always an exercise in, can I take out little pieces? Is it about the overall performance? Maybe, sure. The system, he picked a back three again, Rob, right? That does this feel like we're kind of solidifying that as the system the U.S. is going to play on the run up to the World Cup and probably at the World Cup? Do you trust Miles Robinson, who stepped in with Richards and Ream? Would you rather see Mark McKenzie, who got about 15, 18 minutes? Would you rather see somebody? Kevin Carter-Vickers is in this camp. Obviously, there are players who aren't here that we would want to see in this team in the future. So, again, it is not, oh my gosh, look how great we were. And it's not, oh, we couldn't find a winner. It's kind of, all right, encouraging. Let's move forward.
Yeah, indeed. They play against Australia late on Tuesday, so we'll be able to talk about that on Wednesday. If we're able to stay up late for that one, it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah.
But encouraging signs that, it's rounding into some sort of a shape that looked like it could be competitive in a real situation.
Yeah, look, let's just point out here. Okay, so the lineup, before we move on, Matt Freese in goal. Does feel like maybe Matt Freese is making that job his. you had that back line of Ream, Richards, and Miles Robinson. Now, maybe Miles Robinson is not the first name that you would turn to when you're talking about center backs for the national team. I mean, there's nothing wrong with him, but he's not like solid in that spot. So it could be McKenzie at some point. Obviously, Cameron Carter-Vickers, as we said, was in this team. For whatever reason, Austin Trusty doesn't seem to be part of the picture, but it's there. Then you had Arston at left wing back, which again, that's been his position because we've had Jedi Robinson out all summer, and obviously Jedi Robinson not available for this one.
Good point that they did all that without their top fullbacks on each side.
Want to see what Robinson looks like there. We don't know. I mean, he's more of a traditional fullback than Arston is, who's a wingback in Columbus. You had Aiden Morris and Tanner Tessman, which, a little bit of a surprise to see them play together. I thought maybe one of them would get on the field, but to see them play together from the start. As I mentioned, Tim Weah as a right wingback, and then Tillman, Balogun, and McKennie. McKennie back in the team. Now, again, Pulisic's going to be in the team when he's healthy. So what does that look like? Is Tillman still in there? Is McKennie moving to the midfield or deeper into the midfield? And what if Morris or Tessman probably isn't the guy? Obviously, Tyler Adams would be holding down one of those positions if he was available. I mean, there are several places in this team where you go, okay, it could look, but at the same time, as you said, Rob, we're not going to get to the World Cup with every single player we want available. So learn how to play when you're mixing and matching a little bit. And that's something I think that Pochettino can take away from this game.
You got to say that Aiden Morris a little bit naive on the Ecuadorian goal diving in, but when it happened, I actually applauded like his take on the first touch and the way he rounded Richards and how close Richards almost got his toe into block.
Yeah.
That was
That's
like
a world-class finish. That's a world-class finish. Can you pick apart the turnover, the way it happens for the U.S.? Sure. But if Morris doesn't play that way, is there really another way for him to slow this down and make it difficult on Intervalencia? Or because if he makes that tackle, then we're celebrating him for making that tackle. It's a choice. I get it. And it shouldn't have happened in the first place. And again, those are the moments that can have you losing games in a World Cup, and that's what we are fearful of. Hopefully they get it together enough in the attack that you overcome some mistakes like that, because everything is a give and take, right? Everything is a little bit here. We go for it, but we lose some defensive stability here, or we end up 1v1 there. And you have to trust players like Chris Richards to occasionally, maybe more often than not, make that play.
Curious to see what Mauricio Pochettino's lineup selection looks like for the second and final game of this window. Things kind of rounding.
Australia beat Canada. I just want to point that out. Australia beat Canada, so not going to be pushovers.